I'd love to talk about open design and why I actually think we're on a journey where it's inevitable. We can get frustrated about it, we can get kind of uncomfortable about it, we can worry about IP, but it's happening. And I'll show you a couple of industries that I think are leading indicators for design and show why it's important. But if we step back from all of that and think to ourselves, why is it people are actually participating? That's the big question for me. And I was kind of inspired watching Mad Men, for all things. Like, you watch Mad Men, and I didn't appreciate how ridiculously consumerist a lot of last century was. It was all about selling us more and more product. And if you drive around London, and there's probably 5 examples within a 5-minute drive of these self-storage companies, this is an absolute symbol of why we've already all got enough stuff. It's kind of what it is if you think about it. We've got pulled into the consumerism, we've bought more stuff than we potentially need, and now something else is evolving. And the thing that's evolving, I think Paul Sappho described really beautifully. In the 19th century we had the industrial economy. This was about giving everyone an acceptable quality of life, producing enough stuff, command and control models, like, you know, the big vertical. It's no coincidence that so many big American companies that were founded in this period are called General something. They're kind of like armies, they're structured that way. But then we moved into a consumer economy, which was about marketing and consumerism, and the branding guys often held the power. But I'm really excited about the next phase, which is the creator economy. And I think we've heard some amazing examples of this today. And if anything, I think it's been exacerbated by the financial crisis. I think it's making us all sort of question our values and question the stuff that's important to us. It's making us question the idea of a career of 40 years in a single place. And, you know, this you probably can't see well enough, but I think this is a reflection of it. If you think about what Google is, Google, and actually this gives me an opportunity to kind of shoehorn a bit of data in. Google is actually just an aggregate of human searches and queries and insights and inspiration and needs. It's all it's doing. It's just collecting it in a giant bucket and predicting what you want. And so I love this experiment of just actually running on Google. Do you use predictive text? It's kind of an interesting way to do it. So, you know, if you typed in, I did it this morning, I typed in global design forum, and the first thing that comes up, which kind of shows that many of us are thrifty designers, was promotional code. That was an insight into what most people are searching for. It's aggregate data that gives us as designer insights. And I think this is an interesting version. This is Google Trends, and you can see this line here is sales on the internet, which is pretty level. But then in 2007, 2008, suddenly this line started going up, and this is how to do stuff. This is just the search, how to. Suddenly people started searching more and more in 2007, how to do stuff. They wanted to participate in new ways. I think we've talked about Instagram. It's an amazing example. We can get, you know, the stuff that I don't like about Instagram. I don't like the fact that the randomness has gone. I don't like the fact that of the excitement of not knowing what will happen 24 hours later with film, or slightly less. But Instagram is going to grow fast because it is driving, it's meeting this specific need. Instagram's interesting to me because it's self-explanatory, the benefit. It's about an individual pursuit. We each want to sort of create beautiful art. What I get really inspired by is when all of that action is brought together. And I think this is a good reflection of actually how strong that force can be. So if you think about that consumerist mentality, the idea of command and control, we would have all bet in 1997, which is when this cheesy guy was on this video for Encarta, we would have bet that he would have won. We would have bet that Encarta was the optimum way to disrupt the Encyclopedia Britannica. They were paying a lot of people a lot of money. It had to make sense. But we know something else happened. We know Wikipedia was founded. And Wikipedia it's the design of a new encyclopedia, the design of a new, better encyclopedia that now comprises 23 million articles. Imagine how many people you would have had to engage and pay if you were Microsoft. They could never compete. They actually finally shut down Encarta 2 years ago because they couldn't compete. And this is the power of these collaborative systems. So what I'd love to do is actually kind of dovetail. I'll show you another example that inspires me. I'll show you why I think this is true of products in the future. I think in many ways what we're seeing in bits is going to be reflected in atoms soon. And then I'd love to share some learnings from Open IDEO. So this inspires me as well. This is 91. You've got Linus Torvalds. He invented Linux. Like, Linux props up all of our devices. Like Android phones powered by Linux. Twitter, underlying servers powered by Linux. Linus Torvalds in 91 posted this message. He was a humble dude. He didn't have ambition to create the new big system. He didn't expect to create it. He just wanted to create something better. And what we saw is, because he opened it to mass collaboration, again, no one was getting paid for the improvements. There was this proliferation, this sort of organic explosion of new variants that could work for so many different people. And again, just like Wikipedia, just like what we saw in the evolution of an encyclopedia, no one was getting paid for this stuff. There's some adjacent money being made now around the ecosystem, like his foundation has a consultancy, etc. But this explosion of options was happening because we have this innate desire to create, to design, to make music, to take photographs. And it's going to get stronger, not weaker. I think Eve did a lovely, sort of described beautifully actually why we innately want to participate. We also heard on Beyonce's website, people want this human connection. Thingiverse was mentioned by Eve randomly as well, which again, inspiring to me also. This is a sign that this is happening in product innovation too. The friction's being taken out of sharing designs. So Thingiverse, it's really, really interesting to look at. It's an open community where people are contributing their own ideas, their products. And the beautiful thing you'll see that means it's just like Linux is you'll be able to see derivatives on there. That's me taking something someone else has made and tweaking it for my own purpose. And there's an explosion in creativity, actually an explosion in design. Mass customization is just a potential outcome from this. It may be that actually just the perfect something that is designed that works for everyone, or we may decide to customize everything for ourselves. And our small attempt to learn in this world was Open IDEO. So we founded Open IDEO just over 2 years ago now. We have 37,000 people that work together on the platform. They're from 160 countries. And they work together to create positive impact. They run through a design process, which is just like many of the processes that you've seen up there. So I'd love just to close out with maybe 4 or 5, I say 4 or 5 because I can't remember how many it is, 4 or 5 just learnings that I think have surprised me in this whole process, this journey. So the first one, I hope, is if you look at the music industry, if you look at photography, there's a couple of ways that businesses seem to meet this sort of demand for mass creativity. The first is tools that actually democratize the process itself, democratize doing stuff. So that's kind of what Instagram did for photography. They democratized making beautiful filtered images. We're going to start to see that in design. We're seeing light touches of it, but actually it's a huge unexploited opportunity. And the next thing is a system that actually gives us all a sense of community and an option to share those designs, share those ideas. So, you know, you could argue that in photography, Flickr is an example of that. It's an opportunity for us all to share and give each other praise and advice and allow communities to coalesce, etc. So I think both are inevitable in design. Design's tough, so it's going to happen later, but if you look at these other things, music, photography, I think it's a sign of what's coming. So some of the stuff I think, and I focus on collaborative systems because I think I understand that a bit better, if I'm honest. The first thing is a purpose. In any of these systems, a clear purpose is absolutely essential. Because everyone's coming together, they have to know what they're contributing to, what's important. You could argue that in the Middle East, collapsing governments was a clear purpose around sort of collapsing them, but there was never a clear purpose around what to replace them with, which is kind of the problem now. These systems, when they work well, have a really clear purpose about what they want to achieve. So ours, in Open IDEO, we just want to create better together. Together meaning involving everyone. And that enables us actually to start in the right place, because in design, we're as good or as bad as the question we ask. It's our first opportunity to fail, our big opportunity to screw up, and probably the place that we spend too little time is thinking about the question. What question are we being asked? What does success look like? The next thing I think is really important, and this It's true when designers give their solutions to clients, but it's also true for entrepreneurs running. You become what you measure. I think I was guilty of this with Open IDEO, that I started kind of celebrating number of users. It's like in startup world, it's often called vanity metrics. It's stuff that sound impressive, but if it's not in line with your purpose, it's a complete load of nonsense. It's a distraction. You start to believe it. You start to focus on it. So I try and think through, actually I think number of countries that are represented is more interesting for diversity and impact than perhaps number of users. It's no good to me if they're all in North London. And the next one is, in these systems, we're taught for some reason to assume that everyone is motivated by exactly the same thing for participating. It's clearly nonsense. If you think about why many of you guys may have participated in Wikipedia, your reasons will have differed. Some of you might have participated because you wanted to signal that you were smart in that space. You may have wanted a sense of community. We can design for all of these motivations. As long as the purpose takes us in a common direction, we can design for all of these. So we did that with Open IDEO. We've got things like a design quotient that tell you how you performed on your site, which becomes status and reputation. Or we've got tools that enable you to run brainstorms and understand that stuff. Or we've got teams that combine, that actually give you a sense of community, and then the commenting and the threading, and then, of course, the intellectual challenge. And the final one I wanted to share, sort of important one I think, is as we start to design these open systems, we're transitioning from having to design the output to having to design the constraints. It's like a really big difference. If you want biology to explode in a Petri dish, it's more interesting what the limiting factors are, like gravity, rather than what you're trying to dictate. I think this is an interesting example. So actually, mobile phones became more constrained over time. All the keys they were really dictating how we would use them. They were being really specific. One of the greatest things is Apple actually took that constraint of keys away. They created blank canvases, but then they knew when to introduce constraints, which is like the user interface guidelines. They want to standardize the way that we interact with apps because it makes them better. And finally, it's okay to put hurdles in systems. Again, a vanity metric is just get everyone to participate in everything, but we deliberately make it quite hard to participate. That hurdle can really work. And actually, one of the things that I guess is sort of most heartwarming for me when we move into this open design system is we've never had to take a comment down from Open IDEO. There's hundreds of thousands of contributions on there. Fundamentally, when you create a system where people self-select into it, people are unbelievably good. This is an example of that. There are people that will meet on Twitter because they're interested in Open IDEO and hire out a bar it's happened in New York, London, San Francisco, and get together just to talk about the platform and what it means. We've never had to take down a contribution. I think fundamentally, this opening up of design is exciting because genuinely people are good, and more often than not, their intentions are good. Thank you very much.